Okay. Hello and welcome to this new video. Today we are talking about what will happen after the collapse. So you might have thought about what will happen when the power goes down, or if there's a war breaking out and something like that. And you might have asked yourself, what happens when the shit hits the fan completely? And I think it is important to know that, for example, if you have no food, no water storage, it's gonna be a tough time for you. So I'm gonna talk about that a little bit today, after the intro. Okay, so the first thing that's gonna happen is people who don't prepare at all will have a hard time supplying themselves with water and food. So the first 3 to 5 days are the time where, like, at least 1/3 of the people will die from the lack of water, basically. Water supply will break down, and people who don't have access to fresh water are like, they get hit the most. But if you have supply of fresh water that you can drink safely out from your tap, like tap water, it's not gonna be a problem. But the problem will start if you don't have water in your area at all. Let's imagine you live in Oklahoma. The water tower runs empty because everyone is like starting to fill his bathtub full of water, you know, to supply themselves. This is the only water you will probably get for several days if shit hits the fan for real, and if there's nobody coming to help you. So you're pretty much you can imagine how bad it will be. There are so many people who don't think they need to be prepared for this kind of emergency, and I guess nobody will survive the first few days without water supply. Basically, you can't do shit. And I think if you want to start prepping, it is crucial and important that your first thing you should look about is, what's your water supply? Where do your water comes from? How much water can you store for at least 1 week, like 7 days or 14 days? Every prepper should go for a minimum of, in my opinion, 2 weeks in total. That's the minimum requirement. In Germany too, we have a civil defense administration. I don't know if that's correct, but we have a civil defense thing here in Germany. I don't know the word right now, sorry. Basically they say you have to store water and food for at least 14 days. That's recommended. And for most smaller situations, for smaller power outages, that is definitely enough. But if a crisis holds on more than 3 days, you can tell that it's something serious. At least when it's local, probably serious for the locals. You get hit from the outside, from other counties, from other cities, you know. But if it affects your whole state, speaking of the US or another country, or if it affects your whole country in terms of Germany or the US completely, then you have to make a plan how to get water and food supplies. So you have to basically watch out for vitamin pills. You have to store at least 3 liters of water or 1 gallon of water for every person a day. Because you not only need to drink, you need to wash yourself. Hygiene is very important in an emergency situation. I will do a video on that later too. So stay tuned, subscribe, activate the bell so you don't miss those videos. And I think hygiene is very important in that kind of situation. If you're smelling like shit, nobody wants to hang out with you. It's a psychological thing. Nobody wants to hang around with stinky people, you know what I mean? This situation can be very much less stressful if certain things are not happening, basically. And one of them is starting to smell like a rotten rat. And you need to maintain a normal life as good as possible for as long as you can. And therefore you need to make a plan on how to supply yourself. So the first thing you should look out for is basically store 1 gallon of water for every person in the household per day for 14 days minimum. You should store food, like 14 days is not that much, so noodles with some sauce is all right. If it's a long-term catastrophic event, I would recommend storing vitamin pills and stuff like that. So you have a long-term supply even if you don't have a lot of variety of foods or high-quality emergency food. For example, you can take vitamin powder which has all minerals and ingredients in them. And yeah, that's basically about the water. The food, you should make sure that you have food that lasts at least 14 days. So basically dry food, canned food. If you have an emergency that lasts longer, you should make sure that you have at least some kind of supply that doesn't get rancid or stuff that grows bacteria inside after time. So yeah, I'm speaking of 14 days here. So if you want to be prepared, I would suggest you to store noodles, rice, spaghetti is very space efficient. Don't store macaroni, it takes too much space. Don't store noodles with eggs in them because they don't last as long as normal ones. You can store dry lentils, you can store lentils as canned food, you can store canned meat, canned fruits, vegetables is very important. You can mushed apples, mashed potatoes, freeze-dried mashed potatoes, stuff like that. So you have at least something that fills your stomach, because the worst thing that can happen in the beginning is not a shortage of vitamin supply. The worst thing that can happen besides don't supplying yourself with water is the feeling of being hungry. The feeling of being hungry is something that will destroy you mentally over time. And a lot of people go crazy when they don't have something to eat for 12 hours. I'm talking about days, 14 days without food is totally manageable. Even if you don't eat anything, basically you just need water in that time. That's enough, that's totally enough. Your body can do that like 4 weeks or so, maybe 6 weeks without food. You will lose about 1 kilogram of fat every week in an emergency situation when you don't have a food supply. So if you're like a big buff guy, you have a little bit more fat on you, that's not gonna be a problem. If you have a lot of muscles, you need to maintain them. Otherwise they will shrink over time, because your body also can use muscle mass for supplying its body with energy. And muscle mass is the second thing your body will grab onto if you have no fat anymore. And that's where the shit starts to happen. It can affect your strength, it can affect your immune system in some ways, it can affect your heart. If the heart is one of the last things your body starts to attack to get nutrition from. So basically, people that are extremely skinny, and they have the issue that some of them, if it's really a sickness like when they only weigh about 60 or 50 pounds, which is life-threatening weight. I'm talking about the really, really skinny ones. There's a name for it. I don't know it right now. Sorry for that. They often die from heart attacks, or their hearts just stop beating, basically. Or they have extremely weak digesting organs. Their organs are breaking down. They get smaller. You know, your body does everything to stay alive. But in 14 days, this will not happen to you. So make sure you have just something at home that you can make your family happy with. They feel saturated, they don't feel hungry. Make sure you have enough water, maybe some vitamin supplies, first aid supplies, hygiene supplies, and then you're good to go for at least 14 days. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe, activate the bell, like this video if you find it helpful, and see you next time. Bye. Stay tuned and be prepared.